Okay. So I'm going to be running the contribute, and it's actually a combination of Dreamweaver and contribute, since you know, as we discussed on the phone last time, that you know, the folks who are making the web content for the intranet sites that we're curious you know, about contribute for this project are probably creating templates in Dreamweaver, and then they'd want to use contribute to update them. So I've actually got a virtual machine running right now, running Windows XP, and the reason I'm running XP and not Vista or you know, Windows 7 is because I have an installation of the contribute publishing server on XP. Now the publishing server, which I'm going to go into in a little while, you know, which I'll talk about in more detail, only it installs on Windows 7 or on Vista or on XP, but I only have it installed on this XP partition, which is why I'm using it. And you know, but that's not to talk about its capability.
That's what our standard is for the enterprise right now, Windows XP. So that's
XP is?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So then I'm showing you something that will you know, sit with you guys.
Yep.
So where I figured I would start off, you know, to kind of level set everybody, is I would start the process off in Dreamweaver with a kind of a sample, sample site that we would set up on a live server, and we would, you know, kind of go through and create a template just to familiarize us with how template, you know, an HTML template that you would modify or create insights from and contribute, how that process actually works, and then go ahead and start administering the site in contribute, and actually go through a review process with contribute, kind of take it back and forth. So I'm going to be bouncing back and forth from the PC to the Mac, just to show, because there are going to be two different users set up in this demo. There will be the administrator who is setting up the website in Dreamweaver, and then the content contributor who is you know, modifying the content inside of contribute. So does that make sense for everyone?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay,
yeah, it makes
good.
sense to me.
Great. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do inside of Dreamweaver when I'm creating a new site is I'm going to, and there's several ways to do this, I'm going to create a new site. And so there's a button up here called, you know, the site creation button. And I'm just going to go ahead and click that, whoops, and create a new site. And Dreamweaver has a you know, a wizard that walks you through it. I'm just going to call this one National Bank of Arizona 01. And I'm actually hosting right now up on my own personal web server, which is jerry-silverman.com. I actually have the website being hosted remotely. It's off of a you know, a GoDaddy account. And so I click next, and Dreamweaver asked me, do I want to work with a you know, a server technology, you know, an application server like Cold Fusion or ASP or PHP or any of those. And I could, in this example, I'm not going to, but you know, this is where you would set that up. And the site definition in terms of how I want to edit my files, I really want to you know, edit local copies on my administrative machine and then upload to the server already, instead of editing directly on the network. So I actually already have the path laid out for me in the, you know, in this folder. And as you can see, I've got you know, pretty much a full, robust, already set up and developed in Dreamweaver. So I'm going to select that, keep going, and I connect to my remote server just via pretty vanilla FTP. But as you can see, you can connect by WebDAV or you know, a lot of different ways. So my host name is Jerry Silverman. Oops, Silverman.com. The folder is NBAZ. 01, my FTP login. Oops, that's not it. Let me go. I got to go get my FTP login because it's a bunch of crazy numbers and letters. Go. All right, and put in my password so that Dreamweaver will be able to get through. And I'm not going to test the connection because I know it's good. Now, Dreamweaver is asking, do I want to enable checking in and checking out of files to ensure that myself and my coworkers can't edit the same file at the same time? Now, for this particular example, I'm not going to do that, but if I were utilizing the Contribute Publishing server, that's when I would enable this. This is example number 1 without the publishing server, and example number 2, which I'll walk through after this, will enable check-in and check-out. Okay, so I click Next, and I'm done, right? And your site can be further configured using the Advanced tab. This is going to be the simple example. So I'll go ahead and click Done, and as you can see on the right-hand side, we've got NBAZ01 set up in our Files panel, with all of the files that come in from the website. And right now, I'm looking at the local view of the website. I'm not looking at the remote view. I'm not looking at the server. But if I wanted to look at the server, I would just click here, look at the remote view, and Dreamweaver would connect using those FTP creds. And so this is what my remote server. As you can see, it's mirrored one-to-one right now. And in Dreamweaver, it's possible to just synchronize either your local to your remote or remote to local, whichever way you want to do it. If you've made a bunch of changes. And so that provides some good functionality. I'm just going to look at the local view right now and have a look at this one kind of bloggy looking file, if I can use that word. So this file right here is one that I might want to create a template out of. You notice that we have a banner, we have a little banner ad, we've got some top navigation up here, we've got kind of the title of the page, and some archive links over here that take us back in time, and we've also got a feed for all of the recent posts. So if we were going to template out this blog page so that we could create new blog pages out of it, and we wanted to leave all of this, the top navigation and the bannering and the archives and recent posts alone, and we didn't want to make those editable at all by the content contributor, the only thing we wanted to allow them to edit would be, to add a new blog post and maintain the styling that we've kind of painstakingly put together here. And of course, we've got this gray background for our header, and then we've got a title. Inside the header is this nicely styled title, and a little bit smaller text. We've got the date that it was posted, and then we actually have the content of the blog post, and the links are styled in a particular way. And the only thing we want to give our end user the ability to modify is not any of the navigation or anything. We just want them to be able to create a new blog post and then update put content into those new blog posts without styling it. We don't want them to change the fact that this is let's see, what style is this? This is actually being styled with CSS with the title. So let's see, what is the style? Notice that we get that little code navigator which shows us what the styling is, and we just roll down here and say, okay, so it's 1.3 Ms, and the color is that that 333, and the background color is that BBB, that gray as well, and there's also some padding and width. We don't want them to change any of the styling. We just want them, and we don't want them to modify the CSS either. We just want them to change the content. So what we have to do is recognize that this one blog post is a repeated item, and that each of these individual divs are editable items. So the first thing we're going to do is create this template, create this repeated blog entry item as a template object. So I'm just going to select the div, and notice that when I click on the container in Dreamweaver, I actually get the whole blog column selected. And I don't really want the blog column selected. I just want this one blog entry element. So I can just click anywhere in that blog element, and I can see in the div navigator down here that this is actually part of a div called blog entry. So I'm going to grab that blog entry, and notice now I haven't selected the entire all of those. I've just selected that one div there. And so now I would come up into the Insert menu, and I would roll down to the Template Objects, and I'm going to create this as not as a template because the whole page is going to be a template. I'm going to create this as a repeating region, right? So every time I come in and I want to create a something that repeats, this is what will be repeated. This div will just be repeated down the page vertically. So Dreamweaver tells me that this page is now automatically going to be converted into a template, so that's fine. And let's just call this the blog entry repeating region. Okay, fine. And now we need to assign each one of these, containers as an editable region, because we can make repeating regions just fine, but we also have to tell Dreamweaver and contribute in the template settings that this is editable. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab some of that text, come down to my div navigator down here, and see that I'm inside of a div called div title. So I just click there and notice that the entire div with all of its padding and everything has been selected. So now I would say insert template objects editable region. Right? And I'm actually going to not show that message again, and we'll just call this blog title. Right? We'll make one more for the posted div. Right? Insert template objects editable region. We'll call this blog date. And this content here, I'm just going to grab the entirety of the content and say insert template objects editable region. We'll call this blog content. So now I'm going to save this as a new template in this project. So I'm going to say save as, right? Or actually, I can do one better. I can say file, save as template. Notice that Dreamweaver actually allows me to save this as a template and not just as a standard HTML page. So save as template. And notice that it's going to drop this template into the other templates that exist, into a folder with all the other templates that exist for this website. So I already have a feature page template, a home page template. So, and it also, this dialog also recognizes I have multiple sites set up. So in the National Bank of Arizona 01, I'm going to save this new template. I'll just call it the news page, or the blog page. I'll just call it the news page for argument's sake. Hit save, and I'm going to, yes, update all of the links. And so there we go. Now we have this DWT file, which we had talked about last week as something that your folks use a lot of. So now that I've finished that, I, the administrator, have created this new template, and now I'm going to come into Contribute and start administering the blog, and I'm going to send out an invitation to another user to create a new page and submit it for my approval, submit it for my review. Right? So I'm going to minimize Dreamweaver now, and I'm going to go into Contribute CS4, and it's going to take a second to open. And Contribute CS4 by default is not connected to any one web page, so I actually have to set up my connection again to my web page inside of Contribute. I have another connection here, but what I would do from within the welcome screen, and notice, this is a desktop application just like Dreamweaver, just like any of the other ones. It's not, not based on the web, although there is a browser plugin that will allow you to do a lot of the editing from within your browser, which we'll get to. But notice down here on the lower left-hand side of the screen, there's a huge section of tutorial information. How do I, get started with my website? So there's a huge Contribute tutorial on how do I connect and how do I. So Contribute tries to make itself easy to use by providing this information, and it already is very intuitive. But for somebody just starting for the first time, these tutorials are actually really helpful. It gives you step-by-steps for how to add a new page, how to add PDFs and videos, and inserting tables and snippets and creating links. So how to add all that stuff, how to modify web pages, working with blogs and administering. So it's really the documentation is right here up front when you start the app. That's great. So I'm going to create a new connection to a website as the administrator. So again, that's going to be same one. Silverman.com, NBAZ01, and I connect via FTP, and I would connect you know, the same way that I did before. Now there is a way, and I'm going to when we get to the publishing server, you're probably saying to yourself right now, well, why do I have to reduplicate as the admin? I already set this up in Dreamweaver. Why do I have to, you know, enter my creds again? And I'm going to show you in the second part when we do the publishing server, you can actually create your contribute connection from within Dreamweaver and then connect to the publishing server all from within there. I'm showing this to you as a way to, you know, kind of the simpler of the two workflows. But you can actually save this step of connecting to your website and create a connection. The administrator can create a connection, you know, to the contribute projects and to a you know, contribute publishing server straight from within Dreamweaver. So we'll get there. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And contribute's going to, you know, configure the FTP setting and test all the connections and figure everything out. And once it's done that, then I will basically be able to start setting up the administrative settings, you know, set myself up as the administrator for the site. And we'll get a whole dialogue, right? So, you know, this is my name, Jerome Silverman, my email address. And right, congratulations, I can now use contribute to edit pages on my website. So I'll click done, and it's going to update all of the different templates, including the one that I just made, right, the news page.dwt. And pretty soon it's going to pop up my live page into its browser here. And it's a browser that is really only there to give you a representation of what the web page looks like, but it's not it does not replace you know, doing browser compatibility checking in the browser. For example, you know, this right here is an Ajax widget that contribute might not necessarily display in the same fashion as, you know, Dreamweaver would, or is the same way that Safari or Internet Explorer or Firefox or Opera. So, you know, this is really, you know, as they say in the print world, it's FPO. It's for placement only. It's just to show you, you know, a basic design view of the site, but it's not in any means meant to, you know, take the place of the browser or cross-browser compatibility testing. So, but what you see is now that I have connected to my site, I can start editing this page. But what I'd like to do before I even start editing the page is, you know, start administering the site a little bit. And so I can do that several different ways. I can come up into, let's see, well, actually it's a little bit different on the Mac than it is on Windows. On Windows, you come up into Edit, My Connections, or you can also say Administer Websites. I'm just going to go into My Connections. So you can do it that way, or you can come over into this little icon over here, which is called Manage Sites. Right? So I'm actually going to click Manage My Connections. I get the dialog box here, which I'm actually going to remove that publishing server connection. Yes, that's for a little bit later. So here's my site. As you can see, this My Connections panel for the administrator is a place where I can administer all of the different websites. I already have a website set up, and this is the new website that I've set up, but my role is not established yet. I've only set up inside of Contribute my connection to the site. So I'm connected with all of the credentials, but I haven't set a role for myself. So let's do that right now by coming over to the Administer button. So I click Administer. So I would attempt to click Administer. There we go. And now Contribute tells you, you know, you can control, one second, sorry, wasn't zoomed in the exact right spot. So Contribute administration allows you to control the way users update the website. Do you want them to use it, this kind of standard word processing paradigm where, you know, when you hit the Enter key, it just gives you a standard carriage break? Or do you want them to actually be able to use tags? Now, for most users, you're not going to want to give them the control of you know, tagging and writing HTML into your site. So, you know, we do standard word processing. And then it asked me, would you like to become this website's contribute administrator? Yes, I would. So now it's going to pop up in just a second.
So how do you actually, if other individuals have this software on their computers, how do you actually prevent them from assigning themselves as the administrator when they set up, when they're going through the setup process?
Well, those users are not necessarily going to have the FTP credentials that you do, or the site access credentials.
Okay.
Right? But yeah, you have to make sure that they don't, because if so, then they could go in with those credentials and set themselves up. This contribute is there to allow administrators to control access to the site, and anyone with contribute, as long as they don't have those credentials, they won't be able to make admin level changes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So here we are in the site administration dialog, and as you can see, it has set me up as the administrator, and there are a lot of different roles that one could have. You could have an administrator, you could have a publisher, you could have a writer. You could also create a new role, right? Let's just call it, I don't know, a Jabberwocky. I can't think of what other type of role one would have, but then, right, so you can set somebody as a Jabberwocky or a publisher, and then you can edit the role settings for what those are. Now, I'm just going to remove that because it's kind of silly. But the administrator, publisher, and writer out of the box have specific, settings attached to them. So let's have a look at the administrator role for a second by just clicking the Edit Role Settings. And so right now, the administrator is allowed to publish files, right? So allow users to publish files. So anybody who is an administrator will have the ability inside of Contribute to publish. And this, when you change the settings for the administrator, for the writer, for the publisher, for whatever role that you're creating, the interface of the Contribute, the interface and the dialog boxes inside of Contribute, whichever is installed on whichever machine, will change depending on what rights they have, what role they have. So in other words, as the administrator, I will have a publish button inside of Contribute when I'm ready to make changes to my site, whereas somebody who I assign as a writer, for whom this box would be unchecked, they would not have a publish button for that particular site. Now, they may actually be administering another site, so they would have a publish button when they went to go change settings on that site, but on this site, they would not because their role is set as a writer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Okay, so, as an administrator, I can edit any file in any folder, but let's see, one of the file placement rules, we'd like Contribute to automatically add this folder to the file access list. No, but I can, basically what this boils down to is I can allow editing within specific folders on the website, for particular users. Now here's the one that I find kind of the most useful when it comes to that styling stuff. And it also addresses Stephen's questions about, Cold Fusion, ASP, and dynamic pages, is that if I were to uncheck, right, so right now the administrator has unrestricted editing. So if I wanted to uncheck protect scripts and forms, that means I'd actually be able to go in using Contribute and make changes to, to dynamic parts of the page. You don't always, and also to form elements and script tags. You don't always want to allow that. It's probably best, since Dreamweaver is really the tool that has all the capabilities for dynamic pages, to make those changes there and to protect the scripts and forms. But you can do it in Contribute, though it's definitely not recommended, which is why that checkbox is checked by default. Or I could just only allow text editing and formatting, which is what you would do for a writer. For somebody who's just writing and not publishing and not administering, you only want them to do text editing and formatting. And so, in terms of paragraph spacing, this is what we had seen before. And other editing options, do we want to allow them to edit web page source files and external application, third-party objects like Google and PayPal? Do we want to allow them? Do we want to require alt text for images? And use best CSS practices like strong and emphasis tags instead of B and I. So anyway, when it comes to styles and fonts, do we want to allow them, actually I'm going to go back and allow unrestricted editing for the administrator. When it comes to style support, do we want to allow them to create CSS styles? In other words, inside of Contribute, you can actually style some text if you allow that person to style text, and they can create a new CSS style from that can be used throughout the rest of the page, or maybe it'll just be a span, so it'll only be available in that page. Or you could actually allow them to create CSS that will be applicable in an external style sheet for the rest of the page, but you're not going to want your writers to do that, and they probably won't desire to do it anyway. So you could just say, don't allow users to create styles. Don't give them any rights to do any styling. We just want them to, do the content. Do we want the user to be able to create a blank page, or use a built-in starter page, or create a new page by copying any other page on the website, or we can restrict them to creating new pages by copying only pages that we allow them to create from. And, here's where we allow them to use the templates. And this is where you would restrict them to only using the templates that you want them to use. Show users only these templates. Where is, that's funny, my news page template isn't showing up. That's probably because I just added it, but we'll get back there. Let's just show the users all the templates when it comes to the administrator. Right, shared assets, you can manage all the different, assets in the website's shared asset list, and you can, add all types of library items and stuff like that, or edit or remove. And do we want to enable contribute image processing when insert? So if we have enabled the user to insert images, do we want to automatically, contribute to automatically reduce the image size if it's over? So if somebody inserts, one of their vacation pictures they took with their huge DSLR that's 3,000 pixels wide, do we want to automatically constrain the proportions to 700 pixels wide when they do that? And Contribute is actually going to use the believe it or not, the Photoshop JPEG compression, or the JPEG compression algorithm to do that compression. So it's actually very, very good quality compression. Anyway, go ahead.
I said it's also very cool.
What's that?
It's a very cool thing. Hang on,
yeah.
I'll get right back to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's basically, for lack of a better word, it's idiot-proofing the image uploading process. So even if you do allow these content contributors to upload images, you don't want them to just upload anything. You want to give them parameters about what they can and cannot upload, and if they, because not everybody understands digital image dimensions, and they'll just put up whatever they have. So that's a good way to do that constraint. So okay, I've set my roles for administrator. For writer, obviously the role settings are a little bit different, and folder file access, and editing. Now we have unrestricted editing here, but we can just only allow text editing and formatting. Let's just allow unrestricted for the time being, because it'll show you the kind of everything that's available inside of Contribute. But just knowing that you can do that restricting is good. So the writer is a little bit different. Now, what I'm going to do, and remember, again, this is just example number 1, and let me just get a quick time check here. Okay, it's 12:30. So I can go till 1 or even 10 after 1. And remember, this is going to be recorded if anybody needs to drop off. But it always, to explain this always takes a little longer than you want. So what I'm gonna do in this example is I'm going to add a new user by sending a connection key. And so when I click Send Connection Key, what that enables me to do is email a secure connection key to another user. And in this case, I'm going to send it to myself, to my own email address, and then log on to the to the Connect site, to the Contribute site as a new user. Let's see. Would you like to send your current connection settings? Yes, and include the those credentials, the FTP username and password. Great. Now we're going to go ahead and click Next, and I want the person who I'm sending this connection to be a writer. So I would have constrained their it says users in this role can edit pages but cannot publish pages to the website, right? So in other words, they have to, you know, according to whatever workflow we set out for them, they're going to need to submit their changes beforehand.
So this is how you control all of the, like again, if you have 20 or 30 licenses throughout your company, this is how you actually control the different levels of access that individuals have.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, so this is one way. I'm showing you one way right now, and this is kind of this is the way that you do it without the publishing server component. You know, it's a little bit of you know, you have to send out various connection keys, and you know, for a small project where it's 5 or 6 people, or you know, even up to 10 or 15 or 20 people, it's not so bad. But when you get into, you know, projects that require a, you know, heavy loading and you know, heavy administration, that's where the publishing server comes in. But yes, you're right. This is how you would you know, you delimit the roles for the right of the publisher, the, you know, the Jabberwocky, whatever you want to call those roles, and then, you know, you send a connection key tailored to those roles to a particular person. So I'm actually going to save to my local machine instead of sending in an email, because I don't want to bring up Outlook in here, because I actually have Outlook configured. But so there's actually, what you do is you have an encryption key, right? So you have to enter a password that Contribute's going to use to encrypt the connection key, so not just anybody can connect and start editing your site. So that's another fail-safe when you send out this connection key. And you know, when you're using the publishing server, you have your own password to log in via the publishing server to your site. But without the publishing server component, you have this encrypted, you know, this encrypted password, you know, for your connection key. So we're just going to say.
So I have a question. Within our bank, we have various departments. Do you have to set each one up as a different site and Contribute in order to restrict the access using the different keys, or can you actually just refine, you know, which file paths, you know, individuals have access to?
Yeah, what you need to do is when you set up each individual site, you have to, you're not able to save over. Actually, that's not true. You know, let's actually do an example. Right, the administrator password. Right, I forgot to set up my administrator password. 1 second. Right, so now I'm an official, you know, administrator of this site. Let's see, if I were to try and administer this site. Notice, by the way, that you know, Contribute is now telling me that I'm the administrator. I look into this site. Right, so notice that this actually has a different role, and there might actually be other users of this site. If I were to connect to the publishing server right now, oh, it looks like the publishing server is already on. Hold on, let's see. Let me enable the publishing server really quick. Yes, I want to use the directory service. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right, so having a little an interesting glitch there. Let's actually, I'm just going to disable the publishing server right here. Anyway, so to answer your question, I'm sorry, I ran into a little glitch there. For each site, you need to tweak the admin settings, the publisher settings, the writer settings, all of the role settings, and all of the users. They need to be customized for each individual site. The publishing server alleviates that.
Okay.
In other words, you know, with the publishing server, you can, you know, contain all of that one user's permissions for each site, you know, as part of the publishing server. So you don't need to kind of reduplicate that work.
Well, maybe to help simplify I mean, Steve, I don't know how you feel, or Megan, but I don't think that we would roll this out without implementing the publishing server as a component.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think that from maybe from the walkthrough standpoint, the one, since you're limited on time, the best one to maybe go through would probably be straight through the publishing server process.
Okay. So with this site, as I'm administering it, I'm just going to go ahead and administer it. And right? So I've already set up my administration. So I was trying to enable the publishing server on the other site. I'm not sure why it wasn't working, but I would just click to enable the publishing server. And I have that installed down in my programs. And the installation process is pretty simple. I'm not sure why Windows is, oh, because I'm zoomed in a little bit, that's why. Right, if I come down to my start menu and I look at my programs, you know, the publishing server is still being sold as the Macromedia Contribute Publishing Services, even though it is, you know, with Adobe, obviously. And, you know, you're able to administer that publishing server, start the publishing server right there from the, you know, from the All Programs menu.
And that's included with the Contribute software. It's just an extra licensing fee to actually access it, right?
No, that's not true. You have to download Contributing Publishing Server installer separately.
Okay.
And yeah, I believe, and Layla, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe for every you don't the download of the publishing server is like I don't believe there's a charge for that. What there's a charge for is the licensing. So for, you know, if you want to license 20 people, it's a per licensee charge. You know, for whomever you're going to have signed up. And Layla can walk you through all those details. But it's you know, the actual publishing server itself, there's no charge for it. It's the user. There's a per user fee. So coming on back into Contribute, right? So I'm going to start enabling the publishing server, and here's the address where it is installed. Right, so I'll click OK, and so a publishing service is now managing my connection to localhost, and that's interesting, not to the site that I'm trying to connect to right now. Could not connect because the server is down or not accepting connections. I am the administrator, and I say connect. Interesting. Unable to log into the FTP server. Okay, so 1 second. Go. Righty. So we're just updating all of the connections, and there we go. So it's giving me the disable publishing server, so that tells me that the publishing server is now running. And there's our congratulations message of, you know, your website is now being managed by the publishing server. And so we're now going to specify the users who are allowed to connect, and we're going to do that in the users and roles dialog. And so they have to, like I mentioned before, instead of you know, entering their encryption key, they actually have to enter their usernames and passwords to access the web server, right? So okay, and it looks like the user directory is actually connected, so that's great. Let's see. So if I go back into users and roles, I now have, which I didn't have before when the publishing server wasn't enabled, I now have this Add Users button here, which I can click. And what this is pulling from is a list of users that have come down from my publishing server. So I'm just going to cancel that and show you really quickly the publishing server console to show you how those users got there. So I'm going to zoom back out for a second and just click the publishing server console button. And automatically, Firefox should be popping up. There we go, with my publishing services, you know, admin login page. I'll just say, give my password, and here we go. So now we see my website settings that I am, you know, changing, that I'm administering right now, is this one. I've had a bunch of other. These were just tests that I was doing this morning to make sure everything was working right. Right, so I'm administering this website right now, and let's see, if I go on over to my user directory, you'll notice that the directory type that I'm currently administering is a file-based user directory. It's basically just an XML file that has all of these different users listed in there with their username, their full name, their email address, their passwords, and stuff like that. But I can use, instead of file-based, I can use, you know, LDAP and or Active Directory. And so, you know, here is where you would enter all of those credentials to, you know, to actually access your you know, whatever internal user directory you had. And then from here, you'd be able to search for them and then, add those users as such. You could also search for groups. You'd be able to actually, test how the LDAP is integrating right there. So pretty robust. I'm just using Firebase because I am obviously just one person without a whole LDAP server in my home office here. But just to add somebody really quick, let's see. I'm actually going to delete Bob Smith. I don't like Bob. I'm going to add Joe Smith, and I'm just going to give him my email address there, Jerry Silverman at Gmail. His username will be Joe Smith. Password. Confirm the password. So
and that would come from the LDAP, right? If you were using that, all that stuff would probably be pre-populated?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So I'm just going to click refresh there. And now, coming on back to contribute. And when I go back to users and roles and I want to add users, there's Joe Smith right there. Bob Smith was there before, and now it's Joe Smith, as you can see. So I'm going to add to this project. I'm just going to add Joe Smith. And what role do I want to, have for him? Right? I could have, kept Jabberwocky in there to show you that it's there. But any role that you've described, I'm going to make him a writer. And I can still send him a connection key, and he'll just get a notification that via email, and he'll log in and be ready to go. So, but I'm not going to do that. Right? So now you see in the admin dialog that for this particular site we have added Joe Smith as a writer, right? And we can reassign him if we want to be an administrator or a publisher, and we can basically control all of his pretty much everything about his role. Now, while we're administering the website here, there's a few other things that you can see. Right, this is keeping a log of all the kind of web the addresses that we're using. Here, you can enable rollbacks. Right, so what this does is, like it says, it allows you to keep previous versions of pages that users will use on the website, and it's going to in other words, when it'll cache those into a underscore BAKS folder, right? When a new version of the file is published, and it'll publish the new version as a new file, but it'll maintain older versions if you need to, kind of roll back to those. So that's kind of a nice kind of versioning safety that you can have. So new pages, how they're encoded, enabling page expiry. So in other words, if the information on this, and this is new in CS4, that if you want a page or content on a page to expire, in other words, just disappear, you can set a date. So I only want this web page, new pages that I create to, be good for one day. And, after it's done, you can choose to just, replace the page with, another page that we have, or just delete the page. Just make it a, 404, page not found error, which you probably don't want to do. Let's see, compatibility mode, right? You obviously want to keep it in compatibility mode for, for older versions. Let's see, contribute CS4 administrative settings will apply to all users. Actually, I got to be honest with you, I've never really messed around with this. I've always just kept it in compatibility mode. But the other two things I wanted to show were PDF embedding. You have the ability to take a PDF, embed it in a contribute site, and Acrobat Reader, which will, if it's not installed in the user's front end, it'll prompt the user to install it. So you have the ability to do comment and review right there within the reader, on PDFs. So that's actually pretty cool. And the last, do I not get a refresh? Because I know that this site had that news, template. I'm not seeing it. And And usually there's like a refresh. Let's see. I'm just going to go ahead and close this up for now.
So while you're going back, it's in that publishing server where you actually denote the different department sites, and you can control the different individuals who have access into that from that publishing server. That's what it looks like, because you had several sites listed there. It worked the same way that you'd look at, even though they're all within the same domain, I guess you could call it. You could look at them as individual sites and administer them that way.
Yep, that is true. Original. Now, this is kind of weird because I'm not getting that template showing up, and I know that it's up there on the FTP. There's the file that the template was based on, but not the actual template itself. I'm a little, that's kind of interesting. Well, let's see for a second. If I create a new page, let's refresh the templates for the selected website. Oh, you know what? I created the template, but I didn't upload it from Dreamweaver. That's what happened. I just come over here to Dreamweaver for a second. Sorry about that. All right, in my templates folder, that's why it wasn't showing up. I'm just going to, go to the news page, right-click, and say Put. And that's going to put the that template. Right, so the site has been set up for use by Adobe Contribute users. You want Dreamweaver to enable all the required site settings for compatibility with Contribute sites. Yes, I do. So let's see. What's my checkout name? Nice. Notice that since everything has already been set up, Dreamweaver is a little bit suspicious about uploading. And it asks you for your administrative credentials and your username and password basically. Let's see, synchronization cannot be found. Yes to all, that's fine. I didn't make any changes. And so it's putting all of the dependent files also. So it's actually uploading all the images. I probably should have uploaded the template instead of all the dependent files, because it's actually going to go through, find all the files that are dependent on, that newspage.dwt depends on, and uploads those as well. So I didn't really need to do that, but it's always a good fail-safe if you know that your local copy is the most recent copy. So we're just going to wait for that for 1 second, and go ahead and minimize Dreamweaver. Come on back, and let's refresh the templates for this website, and we should see. And so see, it says synchronizing the newspage.dwt template. So there we go. So I'm going to make a new page based on that template, and the page title will just be regular old news.html, or I'll just call it news. You don't have to put an extension on there. And so here we go. We're creating a new page. Notice that it tells me up here in Contribute that it's new. And now have a look. If I'm just going to minimize those panels on the side so we get a full view. Notice that now I have the ability to create new blog posts and edit new blog posts inside of Contribute. And notice that I'm getting this very interesting little panel next to my repeated region. Remember, we created a repeated region for the entire blog entry, and we called it blog entry. So now we have the ability to add a new repeated region. So notice that the name of this region right now is DJ L2 teams with calendar girls to launch new Hollywood Hangout. If I were to click the plus sign here, it's going to Contribute is going to duplicate that blog post. So you can use that repeated blog entry, or that repeated template region to create, and notice now it has created a brand new entry. So I can go ahead and say DJ Jerry shows contribute to NBAZ/ZBMC, right? Let's see. Today is Feb 19th, 2010, and then I would just go ahead and say check out this cool new video that we have been working on lately. right? And I usually just show this as a because it's very snazzy and shows off the kind of the nice import features of Contribute. But now I would come up to the insert bar and say insert, and you see that I've got a whole lot of things that I can insert images, insert links, insert SWF flash files, insert video, PDF documents. I'm actually just going to insert a video that's already been uploaded to the website, so that's good. It's actually going to be coming directly from the website. And now I get this, choose video on website dialog. Double click, right? And so I go a little too far here. Where's my FLV folder? Interesting. I thought I had an FLV. So let's actually go back, and instead of, it's going to take forever to upload. Anyway, if I had an FLV in my website, I'd be able to upload a video. Why don't we just upload an image instead, or just insert it?
So most of the end users that come through this, they won't ever see the administration portions of this. They're pretty much just going to see the portion of this that you're looking at right now.
Yeah, right, exactly. Of course, I'm doing this as an administrator. Notice this is a JPEG that's actually part of the site. And so if I wanted to wrap this text, right, I would just I'm just going to cut this. And right, so you see the editing capabilities are really kind of similar to what you would expect. And I'm actually just going to right-click this and say, I'll align this to the right or to the left or however I want to do it. All right, let's do it to the left. Or we could just take the alignment off completely and go to image properties. Let's see, there should be a way to have the alignment so that you can wrap the text. You can also set horizontal padding, display width. This is one of the things that you might consider, like doing something, like after you've gotten Contribute and start implementing it, like doing a few of the tutorials to figure out what the best practices are on inserting different elements in terms of how to float them and insert them and stuff like that. So anyway, but you also have the ability to insert PDFs and links and anything you want to do. Now that we're done, since I'm the administrator, I could just publish this live, right? Or I could send it for edit or send it for review, and that actually, or I could discard the draft, or I could save it for later. That actually reminds me of what I was trying to accomplish over here in the administration settings with workflows. Based on whichever template you're using, you can have template-based workflow, right? And the news page wasn't showing up before, but now it is. So based on the news page workflow, we could, on the news page template, we could assign any one of these different types or associate a workflow to it. So in other words, it could be a workflow where somebody writes or creates a new blog entry or creates new content, and then approval is required before publishing, or it could just be write it and publish it right away. It could be that you have to, author, review, approve, and publish, or author, review, and publish. There's, workflows that Contribute will implement, and the way that it implements those is depending on where you are inside of the workflow. It will enable or disable, the publish button or the send for edit, send for review. So in other words, if I'm in the review mode of if I'm the next person in line and the workflow is author, review, approve, publish, and I'm the reviewer, then I would just get I would just get a message here saying send for approval, because I already reviewed it. Now I need to send it for approval. So Contribute will manage the workflow for you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yes. Right. And that workflow is going to be based on whichever template you happen to be using, which is why using templates with Contribute is so powerful. Is because you have the ability to direct workflow based on the actual content template that you have. So I could go ahead and publish this and show you the actual live site. If I were going to send this for edit or send it for review, I would obviously send it to, let's send for edit to Joe Smith with a description of the changes, right? And I would just say, hey, Joe, I started a new blog post. Please give me some new content. And send it back so I can publish. Thanks. Right? And I can choose to notify Joe Smith because I have his email address. I can choose to notify him by email when that goes through, and Contribute will automatically, queue up Outlook or Entourage or whatever it is. Excuse me. And let's see. Enter a new file name for this page, right? So news, HTML. The page expires on, I'm just going to have it expire tomorrow so that it doesn't expire today. And the new web address for this new page is going to be, on that web server with that. That is when it's published, because I'm not sending it to publish right now. I'm not actually publishing it. I'm just sending the changes that I made for review. So, since this is a new page, nothing has actually happened on the web server right now. Nothing on the live site. I'm just basically sending a draft over to Joe so that he'll be able to check it. And unfortunately, I don't have the Mac version or my Mac license of Contribute set up right now to talk to the publishing server that's running on my virtual machine. It would be kind of kludgy to actually set that up. But now Contribute, you'll notice that Contribute on the Windows side is saying my draft has been sent. So if I were to now come back out of, right, so this is now showing me, Contribute is showing me what the change would potentially look like. If I were to come back out of here and log in on Joe's computer, where he's logged in to the publishing server, I would either get an email or I would get a notification from within Contribute saying, hey, Jerry Silverman just sent a draft to you using send for edit at this time and at this date, and I can actually look at the draft history with this button for this document, and it tells me, and here's a description of the changes, and the more changes you make, the more items fill up inside of the draft history, right? And you can actually go to this draft console up here on the right, on the upper left, and it will kind of give you a whole page, a whole list of, the different changes that have been made to different sites, right? So let's see. This is the draft console, and this has got, a bunch of different, right? So these are for different sites, even though they look the same. And notice that these sites actually don't exist anymore. They were deleted, but since I was doing it with this version of Contribute, Contribute sees that I've been making changes to other sites. Right? Now, one of the nice things about the publishing server is the ability to view a log of changes, to maintain and view a log of website changes. So for this particular website, you'll notice that since 12:53, I guess it's running 1 hour behind. 1 hour behind. It's running on Central Time. I started administering the website. Then I published that styles page. I published a new template, right, the news template. Then I administered the website, and then I sent news.htm for review. And Joe Smith was the draft recipient. And here's the note that I sent to him. I can also download this log file as an XML file, and I can also sort all of the different events. So if I just want to see when the website was administered, if I only want to see when drafts were edited, or let's see, send for review, right? There's only been one send for review here. And if I actually go back out, I'm actually going to go look at some of the changes for the other site that I have on here and look at the log there. And as you can see, this actually has a much longer history with a lot of other draft recipients, with a lot of other actions. There's been send for reviews. There's been changes being canceled, and the website's been administered. And so being able to sort through and say, let's just see when stuff has been published. I guess nothing has ever been published on this site. It's all just been stuff getting sent for review, and these are the names and titles of the pages. So how are we doing? Is this stuff lighting up? Is it making sense? Is it confusing?
No, I think this is a really, really solid tool for what we're looking for to help manage our intranet content. It seems really straightforward, and it's an off-the-shelf type of product as well, which is fantastic.
Yep. I mean, a lot of the success, and again, I sent this to Stephen. There's a deck, a slide deck that has a lot of the different types of customers that use Contribute and Contribute Publishing Services for their intranet. I mean, the U.S. Senate is one example. Boeing, the airplane manufacturers that they make, they use Contribute Publishing Services. So there's a lot of big enterprises using this set of tools to do pretty much exactly what it sounds like you guys are wanting to do. So, there's and I know there was a question, last week about support. Many of those customers also have support contracts in place, when they run into, any server type of issues. But the documentation is actually really also very robust for Contribute Publishing Services, and that actually installs along with the server.
Yep, and I guess what I would like to do, I'd love to get the link to this recording so I could maybe even share with some of our other affiliate partners, since there's more than just Zions Bank and National Bank of Arizona as part of the Bancorp. And then I'd also like to see if I could schedule a meeting with Layla, so maybe we could actually discuss a little more about, what all will be included in a larger licensing package, and what some of the price points would be.
Yeah, that sounds great.